Hello and welcome to our video contemplation of day signature 68. This frequency corresponds to the Eight of Hearts, the prime instinct to mature, and the heart virtue of divinity. It is represented by the angels of delight and redemption.
So we have the 46th angel of delight, who walks the pathway of permission to become the embodiment of sensuality. We also have the 4th angel of redemption, who walks the pathway of realization to become the embodiment of understanding.
Yeah. A lot of big words here today. Every day we feel that same way, but the mix of words produces such a very different signature every day. It's kind of neat how that plays out, but we're excited to share what we're seeing today, in particular because so much of what we're seeing today feels like this inevitable, sequential, even obvious follow-up to everything we were so focused on yesterday. We'll share more of what we're seeing as we move along, but it's pretty cool to see how this works from one day to the next.
Yeah, it's just each day we basically follow these repeating themes. If we are noticing something pop up more than once, that's our sign that, hey, there's something here for us to take note of and realize that this is the theme that we're experiencing. This is, we can tell that we're in this flow, this sequential stream of movement. When we see themes from yesterday move into the next day and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's sequential, but it's not entirely linear. It is, in fact, a stream. So sometimes the themes we're picking up on in a signature are a holdover from the day or even 2 days before. Sometimes they're right on theme to whatever words we're finding in that signature. And oftentimes we've been finding they're like a foretelling or a foreshadowing of what's coming in the next day. What's interesting to note here at the outset is when we show up to speak to, in this case, the 68th day signature, we have not yet even looked at the 69th. So we don't know what's coming tomorrow until well after we've recorded today. But in this case, as we arrived at, I almost said a rove, as we arrived at today, after recording yesterday, we couldn't help but hear ourselves using so many of these words in yesterday's contemplation. So now today's the day for that. Today's the day to really put a fine point on some of those themes we were already sensing, already actively communicating. And that sort of magic is just really, really special to be able to witness in real time. We share it with you so that you too can become aware of that magic and so that you can understand it to be indicative of a process that's no different for you than it is for us. The fact that we're seeing it here isn't because we're so special. It's because when we connect to that stream of understanding, that stream of intelligence, and that stream of magic, we all connect to something that extends beyond our conscious awareness into a deeper well of intelligence that literally communicates through us if we allow.
Yeah, it's the power of synchronicity. It's realizing that synchronicity is entirely natural and just waiting for us to notice it so that we can tap into that magic and allow it to guide us and be excited by it. The more excited we are, the more we notice it, the more it gives us.
Yeah, it's like it's forever available in complete form, and we take in as much as we become available to or aware of. And I think it's true that the more we celebrate, the more our perspective expands to receive more to celebrate. It's a part of what we're certainly seeing here. So all of this preamble out of the way, we'll point at these themes as we come to them, but we may as well start at the top, which is the number 8 itself. This is the 8 of Hearts, and the 8, as always, has 2 primary keynotes, which are
gravity and goodness.
Gravity and goodness. What I like about this is gravity has this density and this weight about it, and goodness moves in the opposite direction simultaneously. It has this levity about it, this lightness. In fact, we've been in conversation with the 11th angel of light since the 11th day of this month. So this is going on day 4, I think. And this angel of light is speaking very much to this theme of lightness and directly equating goodness to lightness. This sense of good simultaneously grounds us and liberates us. And that's the first thing I'm picking up on in these words. And that's kind of what you see in the figure 8 itself. You see that the circle at the bottom, the circle at the top, and they're feeding into one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally see the connection between the heart virtue of divinity today and these 8 keynotes. Because, you have this gravity, you have goodness. You can see how they kind of connect to this theme of divinity. But actually, our secondary keynotes really drive the point home because all of those keynotes are big words. We've got love, power, God, symbiosis, and infinity.
And the word good itself, like the word God, is an exact match to the frequency of the number 8.
Wow.
So, okay, I hadn't recognized that overtly, but I think it certainly feeds into what we're meant to see here today.
Definitely.
Good eye, babe. Thank you. Whatever we're finding is obviously situated in the heart. We know that we're dealing with the opening of the heart, and we know that in opening our heart, we're actually becoming available to the experience of the richness inherent to life. The heart is that part of us that taps the essential layer of information that is invisible to the eye, but actually more tangible in that it connects to the whole being in a very direct way. So we're learning, if we were to tie just these first few pieces together, we're learning to tap the memory of our own divinity, to recognize it not as an intellectual possibility, not only as an interesting idea, but as a direct experience. We're learning to literally feel connected to that source of divinity, which is surging for expression through every single one of us as direct expressions of that same divinity. This is beautiful and interesting, and it is something that's meant to be felt, which of course is going to play in heavily to the themes that we discover in the angels and this whole conversation of this day signature, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a connection to, like you said, the receiving part, but also everything we've learned about how we have an impact. And it's that impact of the heart. It's that impact of our hearts opening and permitting ourselves to love what we love. Because when we do that, when we love so completely and consistently, our expression in the world has an enormous impact.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's what I think this keynote of divinity is talking about. I think that the keynote of gravity is talking about that because we have some frequency matches to the words of the day that match today's frequency of 68. One of them is atomic impact.
Nice.
And actually in our virtual oracle card pull today, we pulled the 53rd angel, which is the angel of impact, walks the pathway of expansion, which actually is expansion.
I do recall seeing.
So expansion is also a 68. To become the embodiment of infinity. And so again, we see this theme of infinity. Another frequency match to the 68 is infinite love. So actually, the keynotes for the 8 that we mentioned secondary are love and infinity.
Correct.
Again, multiple times over, we're seeing these themes repeated. So I think that's why it's definitely worth noting the impact of the heart here in this particular frequency of today.
It's home base. It's the center of everything. As you're speaking, I'm seeing this figure 8, and where I generally, in my mind's eye, imagine a figure 8 moving horizontally like this.
Right.
Obviously, an 8 is that same figure 8 moving vertically like this, right? And the idea here is that each of our lives are the point at which spirit and matter come together. So in the 8, it's the center of the 8 where they touch.
Yeah.
We tend to think of these as separate things. We have that which is material and practical, and we have that which is spiritual and ideal. And what's actually happening is there is a point of convergence whereby these two things feed into and support one another. And that point is you. It's your literal physical experience. That's the point at which the material environment meets the essential or spiritual information of you, of life itself. Of course, capital L, life includes all of this, and we become embodied here and now in these physical forms so that we can live it out at that point of convergence as we are filled by the spirit of life and supported by the material experience of it and benefited by both. Mm-hmm. We absolutely need both. There's no other reason we would become physical or embodied, right, if not for that. So that point of convergence is you, and within you, it's here at the center of your being. It's in the heart. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of energy beneath that if you're paying attention to like chakra centers and these different ways that energy moves and these different frequencies that energy communicates at. And there are a lot of different expressions of that energy above the heart. It all meets here in the center. Mm-hmm. So the heart is home base. There was, I wish I could remember the exact quote, but one of our stones told us this about how earth, home, and heart are connected, and ether too. Mm-hmm. It's like you have this material expression of earth, mm-hmm. this ethereal expression of the element of ether, and the home of all that is the heart. It was emerald, you said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's what I remembered. Yeah. So we're finding that again here, and we haven't even transcended the first 2 points, 8 mm-hmm. of hearts. That's as far as we've gotten. Mm-hmm. Amazing. So much richness, so much goodness mm-hmm. to be found here.
Yeah, definitely what we're seeing here is divinity, or this concept of, otherworldly spirituality, totally grounded in our human experience. Yeah. Especially when we start getting into the angel of delight, we'll see that there is absolutely so much evidence to point us to fully enjoying being embodied, being incarnated in these human bodies, and being very, very present with this physical experience that we're having.
Yeah, absolutely. Divinity is expressing through every single one of us. It's expressed through form. Mm-hmm. It's funny because we didn't talk about any of this. We didn't recognize any of this in our conversations in the lead up to this. Right. So this is for all of us right now in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you can really see it when, again, our oracles that we pulled today, we got a message that said true decadence is a reverent, powerful act.
Nice.
And again, that's very much on point. And also, life is a gift to be cherished. So we can see how what we're being called to understand is that this physical experience is divine. Yeah. There's nothing more spiritual.
Yeah, there is nothing more spiritual than your real life. Mm-hmm. Your real life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I love that. Yeah. I mean, in a way, it would be really easy to just stop there and linger in that, because whatever else we may discover, this is worth taking into the day with you, to look into the mirror and to sense for, to seek out this divinity in what you see, to look around you in your life, to consider the circumstances that are moving in your experience, and to understand that everything is a messenger of that light. That's a very different way of meeting our experience. And I think if we can begin to meet our experience that way, even begin to meet our experience that way, we will begin to establish a whole new form of trust in life. And we will begin to release a lot of the concerns we previously held. Because if this is even potentially true, it changes everything. And if this is even potentially true, it indicates that there is, in fact, nothing to fear. And everything that happens does genuinely, literally happen for us on our behalf. So this is big. It certainly ties to everything we've already been going on and on about now for weeks. Mm-hmm. Very exciting. Let's take it deeper. Mm-hmm. Let's look at, we've talked about the heart virtue of divinity quite a bit. Mm-hmm. The prime instinct to mature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we used this word maturation in yesterday's conversation.
Or the day before. I couldn't remember. But very recently.
No, it was yesterday.
Wow, that was a long day.
It seems like a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, that word maturation was a frequency match to yesterday's frequency of 67. and we were already picking up on it, not knowing that it was going to be the prime instinct today, and also the fourth angel is the correlating angel to that fourth prime.
Yeah, okay. So the prime instinct to mature comes from the fourth prime, which is the Emperor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the home of the fourth angel, which is the angel of redemption. So we've got a really unexpected but direct and powerful connection between this prime instinct to mature and this fourth angel of redemption, which now, as I'm saying, is like, dang, that's clear.
Yeah, and we were also talking about the redemption yesterday
extensively.
As well. Yeah.
Unexpectedly and extensively. There was this theme of our newfound awareness changing our perspective on everything so completely that even the past, even our actions of the past, were fully redeemed and placed within their proper context of a developing narrative, of a procedural, progressive flow. Mm-hmm. That's maturation. Mm-hmm. What I like about this prime instinct to mature is that on the one hand, it seems synonymous to other words we use a lot, like grow or become. In fact, there are other prime instincts that use these terms. There is a prime instinct to become. I think there's a prime instinct to grow.
Possibly.
But in any case, this is not perfectly synonymous. What I realize about the prime instinct to mature is that as you're growing and as you're becoming, you are also developing an expanded awareness. That's what maturation is. It's not just that you're passing time. Mm-hmm. It's that as time passes, you are becoming wiser. Mm-hmm. So yes, you're in a procedural flow, and yes, the story continues, but the point of all of that is to expand you, is to expand your awareness and to expand the quality of your experience, and ultimately put down really deep roots into this well of wisdom that comes of all that experience and all that growth. Mm-hmm. So there's something very active and engaged about this instinct to mature that involves you. Mm-hmm. It involves you in a very direct and conscious way, whereas growth kind of happens oftentimes through us. Mm-hmm. Maturity is something we develop. We're involved in this act. That, I think, is very fascinating. Mm-hmm. There's something I'd like to bring in now, like as early in the conversation as possible. And it's yours. It's something you said however many days ago now, but it has not stopped returning to my own awareness. It has been a central part of our conversations on many different subjects every single day ever since you said it. Mm-hmm. It was so just like casual when you offered it initially, and it was never for a moment like casual to me. I was like, that is important. We were in a conversation on whatever subject we were talking about, and you just said, well, the story isn't over. Yeah. That's all. The story isn't over. Mm-hmm. And it continues to glitch my brain a little bit because the fact of the matter is the story is never over. But what happens in our awareness when we're bound up on a certain subject, when we're worried over something, when we're facing a circumstance or a person or an email or whatever it may be that's in front of us right now, we forget that this right now moment is one part of an eternal flow. And we begin to extrapolate from that point into this fantasy of a future, this completely made up future. We draft a trajectory that says, well, this is the way it's always going to be now. And we look at the amount of money in the bank and we think, oh boy, I'm screwed. Mm-hmm. This isn't enough money. We forget that more money could arrive at any single moment past that point, and obviously will, in the same way that it obviously always has. Otherwise, you obviously wouldn't be here now. Mm-hmm. We forget that we're in this flow, that we're in this process, that we're in the heart of a story which simply never ends.
Yeah, we're so close to the unfolding of it that we just have to be simultaneously taking these steps into the void in order for something to be under our foot when we land. Mm-hmm. It's a really intense understanding when it finally like dawns on you that you are so much a participant in the unfolding and the building of your life. And I feel like that's the ultimate, maturity to understand. And it's that the story literally doesn't end and you're in it. You're very close to that process. So be willing to allow that story to be written in the best way, like the way that you want it to unfold.
I can't help but think, obviously we think in terms of our experience because we are us. Mm-hmm. And your story is a little different, but I would imagine that if you're watching these videos and you're engaged in this sort of material, you are like us in that you are committed to this continual process of self-expansion, of growth, of remembering the truth about yourself and permitting more and more of that light to shine out of you every single day. So if you're like us, you should be able to, without any degree of hesitation or difficulty, look back at the you from 1 week ago and realize that who you are now is altogether different from who you were 1 week ago. You might be living in the same house, you might be driving the same car, you might have the same job, you might be surrounded by the same things, but who you are now is not who you were 1 week ago. That's maturity. That's because as you move through this process of life, as your story unfolds, you are growing, you are expanding. And what we struggle to remember in the now moment, basically every now, is that will continue forward as well. Yeah. That while it has been true every single moment of our entire life and however many other lives we've had, it will continue to be true indefinitely. Mm-hmm. So who you are 1 week from now will have more information. Things that you're looking at now will in fact have begun to change or changed drastically. We have no control over that. The guarantee is that you will change, you will grow, your life will transform around however much growth you permit to unfold within you. And that's a part of what we're seeing here. We need to get out of the habit of looking at what's in front of us and assuming that that is what we're dealing with for all time. Mm-hmm. In fact, we need to replace that with a new habit that looks at what's in front of us and learns to say, oh, this is cool, or, oh, this is interesting, or, oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. Because however uncomfortable or disconcerting this is right now, I know that this is all part of a process that ultimately serves my best interests, that ultimately serves this process of continual expansion, development of wisdom, deepening of my own relationship to life, and expansion of the richness of life that I get to experience. Like, this is only for good. And that's where this theme of goodness plays in here. Yeah. Maturation works as a developmental awareness of the goodness that exists indefinitely. Mm-hmm. It's always there in complete form. What we're maturing into is a larger and larger capacity for that goodness. That's amazing. So who you are now is capable of receiving, recognizing, and benefiting from more goodness than the you that existed 1 week ago, 1 day ago, 1 hour ago, 1 minute ago. And that same exact process will continue itself forward forever. That's something. That's what we see in this prime instinct to mature. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Hi. Mm-hmm. You wrote that down for us. The story isn't over yet. It's interesting because in the lead up to every conversation for at least the last 3 to 4 days, I've said, hey, I really want to bring this into the conversation. Today's the first day where it obviously made sense to. Obviously only because here we are sharing it. But I'm really happy to have it in the mix now. And I encourage each of you viewing or listening to this to just kind of take that same exact line into yourself, to know that whatever you may be meeting, good, bad, or indifferent, the story isn't over yet. And in every case, however it feels right now, it's going to get better. That's the guarantee of a life that only grows, of a life that is only good.
Right. Yeah, I think we, when we're faced with something that maybe we just find out, we don't have a lot of information yet. And what we can trust is that if we're willing to not immediately react, if we're willing to relax into the moment and trust that an hour from now or a day from now, we're going to have so much more information and things are going to unfold and resolve without you really having to do much. It's a natural process. But it's a process that we have to basically understand that it's one of those just inherent laws that we get really uncomfortable with because we want to be able to figure everything out immediately. But this is basically like a cycle that happens on so many octaves or scales, I guess I want to say. It could be like a really simple thing that happens in our everyday lives, but even, the trajectory of like planet Earth has its own process of unfolding, and that story is not over. And everything that's happening now that looks scary or unknown is part of a process that is a natural process. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. That natural process is destined to play out. In each of our individual cases, we become responsible for permitting it to play out. We think that we need to have it all figured out because we've been tricked into believing that we're responsible for figuring it all out.
Right.
And we're not, nor have we ever been capable of it, clearly.
Right. That are somehow our next choices or actions or behaviors are going to be the tipping point that's going to either
make or break
cause
something.
Destruction or redemption or what, but none of that is really true.
Right. The goodness is inherent to life itself. So the redemption, the remembering, the ultimate victories, all of that is built in. It's like we've been talking about. The kingdom is already yours. There's nothing to earn. And as we learn to release this part of this idea that we are responsible for knowing everything now, we actually become more available to the surprises that have been waiting all along.
Yeah.
That's great. Not only do we become liberated from a heavy burden, but we become available to an awesome gift. Whoever saw that coming? But that's exactly what we find. So this leads us to the angels.
Yes.
I would say now is a good time to move into the angels.
Yeah. So which one would you like to start with?
Well, we have the 46th angel of delight, who walks the pathway of permission, yes, to become the embodiment of sensuality. Permission is another one of these themes.
Yeah, we talked about permission yesterday quite a bit. What I love is that we have two more words that are frequency matches to today that directly connect to this angel.
Really?
So the angel of delight is a 68.
Oh, cool.
And so is the word sensation, which is very much connected to
sensuality.
It's almost synonymous with the word sensuality because it's all about the senses being present in your body.
Yes. I always like to say that sensuality is a really special double entendre because on the one hand, it is directly correlated to the senses. It's about your sensational or sensory experience. That's a sensual experience. It's tangible. It's complete in this regard. It's very physical, and it's meant to be. And what happens when you allow it to be, when you come so close to your own life that you permit yourself to truly feel it completely as a whole being, that life becomes very rich. It becomes very sexy. It becomes very sensual.
Right. It's almost like when you are permitting the full sensory experience and permitting yourself to enjoy it, it becomes sensuality.
Yeah. It becomes delicious. And this is where we find delightfulness kind of rooted in the physical experience to produce sensuality. Yeah. I like that. It's almost got this sense or essence of romance to it, and it ought to, because what is your life if not life romancing you, permitting this beautiful, exciting, worthwhile story to emerge in its own unique form? What is more loving? What is more unconditionally committed than that? This is the gift we're given. This is what it means to be children of God. But if you're a child of God, you are born of divinity. And we're right back to where we started. We are not disconnected from the very thing that supports us. We are one and the same with that thing, except we are distinct expressions of it. This is very difficult for the linear, conscious portion of our minds to grasp. But when you hear it, you know it. And even if that intellectual portion of your mind wants to argue with it, there's something inside every one of us that resonates with that awareness that we must be connected to something larger than ourselves that somehow also includes us, that we are not distinct from or separate from, but expressive of. It's a wild thing to come to, but it's a necessary thing to come to. And once again, it's all anchored in this experience, and everything your eyes can see, and everything your mouth can taste, and everything your fingers can touch. It's meant to be embodied. The embodiment of sensuality is like saying the embodiment of being a body. It's it's about the physical experience. And how does this happen? It's on the pathway of permission. It's about permitting yourself to be a human and divine. It's about permitting yourself to just finally relax.
Realizing that there's no part of your human experience that is not divine. And in that sense, it's why this angel is connected to the fourth angel of redemption, because everything is redeemed at that point. When you are fully permitting the whole experience, the whole sweep of your life to be divine, it is completely redeemed and understood to be good.
Yes. It has to be, because as this angel of light is being very clear about right now, only good exists. Life is good and only good. There is no exception to this rule. Those were the words we got last night in the middle of the night.
Another frequency match today is assume only good.
Assume only good. We've been talking a lot about what it means to assume and how deep those roots go when we're truly assuming something. We talked, I think, yesterday about the child who's not thinking about dinner because there's no question as to whether or not dinner will come. There is no question as to whether or not this experience, this moment, this day, this email, this conversation, this number in the bank, whatever, this anything, there is no question as to whether or not this becomes something that benefits you. This becomes something that surprises you. This becomes something that expands you. No question. Assume only good. This moves in both directions. It redeems the past as you recognize that every step along the way was perfect, because every step along the way led you to now, which is just one step along the way leading you to another now that's even bigger and even better, where you are even wiser and even more relaxed and even more trusting and even more aware of all of these ideas that we're exploring every day. This process never stops unfolding, and we never stop becoming more awake. So it also feeds back into delight. Because when we permit our enjoyment, our lives become delightful. This path of permission is central to the primary theme that the angels speak to as a collective. This theme of enjoyment is about permitting yourself to enjoy your life as a delight. Imagine that. Imagine waking to meet a day and literally feeling delighted. What if that were your knee-jerk response to the day, instead of, dang, my neck hurts, or I didn't get any sleep last night, or oh my God, another one of these long-ass days. How am I going to make it through? What if it could be a delight? What if it were meant to be a delight? What if it has been a delight all along, and the only one who wasn't clued into the fact was you? And what if that was never your fault, because you innocently received a whole batch of really shitty ideas that had nothing to do with you, were in no way connected to the truth, and now, as a clear-eyed adult, you're learning what it means to see the truth, release what is not equal to that, and meet your real life as a genuine delight? What if that were the truth? What if that's what's happening here?
I can't help but also note that one of the frequency matches is you are worthy. And wow. I mean, that is, of course, divinity.
Yes, that's exactly where I went to.
And of course, if you are divinity, you're worthy of delight. You're worthy of all the good things that you could possibly experience. You're not going to feel that way if you think you are unworthy or wretched or not divine. You'll
never permit yourself to access delight or even basic enjoyment, because who are you to expect something like that? You're here to earn. You're here to work. You are not. We are not slaves. We are free. And this is a part of what we're coming to find. We talked about the angel of nobility just yesterday, and how when you're born into the family of nobles, it's inherent. It's a part of you. There's nothing that needs to be earned, and there's no getting away from the fact. That divinity is something you are. You're born into it. There's nothing to be done about that. Whether you like it or leave it, it sustains as a fact. And so the only true variable that shifts in that regard is the quality of your experience. If you like it and claim it and live up into that, you begin to live out a consciously divine expression of life. You live a beautiful life. We call that paradise. And if you don't like it, if you choose to leave it, if you think that's nonsense, then you're going to have a life that is not equal to that paradise. You're probably going to be totally unfulfilled and quite miserable. But you'll have this weird intellectual sense that you are right and everyone else is misguided as you continue to move through an unfulfilling life.
Yeah.
That breaks at a certain point, no matter who you are, whether it's in this life or the next, that arrogance breaks.
Yes. It's like, for some reason, when we get into this mindset of, well, this is what's right, this is what's true.
Competitive.
When there's this judgment or comparison, we disempower ourselves completely. We are giving up our right to choose what it is that we actually want, because we're so focused on these other ideas, which have nothing to do with this quality of life that we're actually after.
Yeah, that's
if we could understand that the real empowerment is choosing what it is that you actually want to be true, then you're like getting it. It's
Absolutely.
hard to explain.
No,
because,
you got it.
But
it's great.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is, those of us who are kind of stuck in that direction, and I think probably many of us have been there at some point or another.
Oh, of
and
course.
We certainly know the person who has like claimed that position. You know, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, it's cold and it's hard and it's sterile and it's lifeless, but we're familiar with it. The fact of the matter is, and the irony is, that idea, that staunch idea that some people cling so tightly to, is not even an original idea. It's not something they came up with. It's something that was imposed on them. There is no child in existence born a skeptic. Children are not born skeptics. That is injected over time through skeptical adults.
Right. And that's, I think, what is meant by, I'm sure we've all heard this, that, you know, we're living in an illusion. This is some matrix or anything like that. It's true because of those ideas that there is, you know, this imperative to compare and to judge and to understand that because what we're seeing objectively is bad, that's the truth somehow.
Yeah.
When what we're really called to do is rise above that illusion and realize that we have the right to choose exactly what it is that we want.
Yes.
And when we give up that right to choose, that's what that looks like.
Yeah. We had talked, we're still working on this. We had talked a bit about this the other day, and I'm really getting the sense that it's correct based on everything this angel of light is telling me. But what we've been exploring is this idea that we're not even called necessarily to see through or see past something that doesn't feel good or feel right. We're not meant to argue with it. We're supposed to somehow see around it. And what I'm picking up on is that it has nothing to do with that initial interpretation of something as bad or unwanted. We're developing a way of seeing that is so clear-eyed, that is so aware that life itself is only good, that literally all we ever see is good. It's not like we're having to do this dance around evil or discomfort. It's that everything that happens is met with a wholehearted thank you, because there is a complete understanding that only the good can exist. So this is a very, very new way of being, new way of seeing, a new way of understanding ourselves, and a new way of understanding life. But this is exactly the fourth angel. This is what it means to redeem your own vision, to reclaim it.
Clear vision is a 68.
Yes. Okay. So this fourth angel of redemption walks the pathway of realization to become the embodiment of understanding. do you realize that if any of us were capable of what I just described, we would in that moment be embodying understanding? And the thing is, this is not some impossible, out of reach idea. This is something we're already witnessing happening in these little pockets, certain areas of experience where not long ago we were very concerned or very worried or very bent out of shape for one reason or another. We're finding ourselves meeting those areas with poise, just completely altered in our perspective as to what's happening. Now, maybe instead of worry, there's interest, intrigue, like what's going to happen? Something is happening, clearly. We know it's happening for us. So what comes next?
Yeah. It's no matter what we're encountering, there's always an insight that we can extract from it. So it's almost like anytime you have an encounter of something that you don't understand or that has an apparent, way of looking at it that might seem like the initial sort of
like obvious interpretation.
Yes. There's always insight that you can basically gain from it that's going to be a whole new realization for you. Everything that we meet in life is an opportunity to grow, to expand, to almost like receive a gift.
Yes. Literally.
Yeah.
And that gift in every case expands our perspective, softens our stance, opens us up. And
it totally like translates to our actual physical life. The effects that we actually enjoy in our physical life.
Yes. Down to how comfortable you are in your own skin, down to how you feel about the person you see in the mirror, down to the items in the space around you. It's directly physical because it's the physical experience that the spiritual material is, like the raw material of spirit is becoming manifest. That's the point. It's so that we can interact with it and learn through it and expand as a result. It's wild. This is everything we've been talking about throughout the day. And this is what the pathway of realization means. It's another one of these words that has more than one meaning, kind of like assuming had more than one meaning. In this case, obviously, you're meeting every moment understanding that there is something to be realized. There is an insight to be, what is the word?
Downloaded.
No, I won't use that word. Like mind.
Yes. Like mining gems.
Correct. But the other side of the word realization is that when you realize something, not realize, but when an idea is realized, it becomes manifest. So on the pathway of realization, both happen. Because the moment you truly get it, when you truly realize something, it becomes realized. It's almost like as quickly as you can open your mind to these concepts, they root in the heart and become expressed in the body of your experience. Yeah. It's like they happen at one time. They don't always happen at the same time, in time, but it's like it becomes that real, and it does happen quickly. So this path of realization, yes, it's about paying attention to your experience in such a way that you can, in fact, mine that experience for its gold. But it's also about realizing that as you do this, that gold comes to life in real ways. You are manifesting your own experience, but not in any way akin to what we've been told about manifestation. Yeah. We're not responsible for making anything happen. We are responsible for crafting our own relationship to what is happening in such a way that the very best is what we receive. And how do we get that? We get it by expecting the best, by assuming only good, by knowing absolutely without any hesitation, without any doubt, that life is constantly acting on behalf of you, on your behalf, on behalf of your best interests. So understanding, of course, is what it means to finally kind of breathe that sigh of relief into all of this. Its posture it's like that figure eight. It's grounded and it's long and it's poised and there's no tension in it. It's totally relaxed, totally fluid, totally aware, totally engaged, but totally hands off. This is a way of being that we do not see in the world around us very often. But when we do, we recognize the light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's what I imagine divinity looks like.
Mm-hmm. Because what is there to fear?
Mm-hmm.
We use the metaphors that the tarot presents of the nobles and the king and the queen and the princess and the prince and the knight and all of these. And we talk about the kingdom. These are just tools to begin to conceptualize a way of being that is practical, is real, is meant to be expressed through your spine, through your tone of voice, through your actions and behaviors and ideas and decision-making processes. This is meant to be lived out. If you knew you were a king, or if you knew you were a queen, or if you knew you were a literal expression of God itself, you would have nothing to fear, and you would move through life confidently, fluidly, graciously, thankfully, excitedly, playfully, creatively. All of these words we're finding here every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Did I use more words?
Mm-hmm. Moving fluidly is
what?
Yes.
So cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really starting to find a rhythm of like being able to notice the frequency matches of the words
That's
for the
neat,
day.
dude.
I'm really enjoying that.
Me too. Every time you say it, I see that little smile creep up. I'm like, oh, what did I say?
What did I say? Yeah.
And it's always good.
Yes, of course.
We talk about how these conversations are like this. I'm sure we've described them in this way before, but it's like when we show up to speak and to share with you, we really just have to trust that everything that's meant to be said will be said. And often it isn't until much later when we're, in this case, we're looking at the themes for the 68 and we're going, didn't we just talk about that like 30 minutes ago in this recording?
Mm-hmm.
So if life can speak through us in this way, it can speak through all of us in this way. And if life is speaking through any of us at all, then it is in fact true that we are expressions of that life, that life supports us, that life moves through us into life, and that we are carriers of that light that is life. That's divinity. Mm-hmm. That's what we're realizing, and that's what's becoming realized in our life.
We just have to permit it.
We simply have to permit it, and that's the final bow. Because in order to realize anything in life, in order for anything you're considering to manifest, you have to live it. You have to permit it. It can't just be in your head. It has to come into your feet. It has to adjust and refine and perfect your behaviors, and it has to expand your mental access to possibilities, which of course directly connects to your decision-making processes. You have to permit it. Permit this to be true. Permit even the idea that it could be true, but get to work expanding your previous assumptions, all of which are limited in comparison to what is true, and that will remain a fact because our brains are minuscule in comparison to what's happening here, in comparison to infinity itself. And we just let this continue to happen. We permit it to continue to happen, and we permit ourselves to enjoy the ride. We permit ourselves to be the human beings that we are. That's a verb. Being is a verb. We are involved in something here, and it is on purpose, and it does involve our physical experience, and it absolutely does involve the spiritual, essential information of you, of life, that makes it all possible. There is nothing alive void of that. So, of course, spirit and matter meet at the center of life, which is you. And of course, when you extend infinity in every possible direction, the very center of that infinity is literally you for you, and me for me, and Laura for Laura. Play with that one mentally. Yeah. It's pretty cool. What you find is that what we're describing here is so much more than a whirlwind of nice ideas. Yeah. We would be wasting so much time in these conversations if these were just ideas. They may or may not remain just ideas for you, but they are not just ideas for us. And as we learn by the day to live more deeply into the ideas as realities, our life is changing, and the quality of our experience is changing. The things around us may or may not. The house we live in may or may not today, but will in time. The car we're driving may or may not today, but will in time. All of these things will shift and change in their right time, but what's truly changing is changing here at the center. The quality of our relationship to all of it is elevating drastically by the day. We wish the same for you. And we're excited to see what kind of a life develops around that. We already feel like we're in paradise and we've hardly met it. There's so much more.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to read some more words.
Yay, read them all.
So I did write down a list of words that really supports this heart virtue of divinity.
Okay.
So we have the King of Angels.
Oh, wow.
The Queen of Angels. The Almighty. The Creator.
Wow.
You are a creator God. You are worthy. You must believe. Superhuman, faultless, total package, pristine, and white magician.
Amazing. Pristine is a beautiful word.
Yeah.
You are worthy reminds me of kind of another angle I felt excited to come at this theme of nobility or divinity from. It's like, if you're born into the noble family, you don't need anyone to convince you that you're worthy. There's nothing to be worthy of. You are that. You are a prince or a princess. It's done.
I mean, I feel like the sequence of you are a creator God, you are worthy, you must believe. Is like
that's
three
exactly right.
big statements that you've got to get all three.
In that order. Yeah. The first two are built in. That third step is your own to take.
Right.
You must believe. You must remember. You must believe. This is the pathway of the seer, which, by the way, is the pathway that the angel of light we're meeting with walks. And what does this become in the embodiment? Angelhood. Divinity. This is a really cool day. I feel like every day we record, we finish it, and we're like, that was our favorite yet.
Yeah.
And every day it's true. And if we were to go back and watch any of the ones before today, it would be our favorite again. These are awesome. We're so fortunate to be able to share these findings with you. We're excited for everything they will continue to become, because when we meet the 68 again, it's going to be a whole world of new discoveries. But along the way, the fact that we get to share this with you means so much to us. So thank you for the time you take, however frequently you take that time to join us in these conversations. It matters to us. And we, as we often say, we can't see you through this as if it were a window, but we can feel your presence, and it really does mean the world to us. So thank you very much. Are we ready to roll?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
We'll be back tomorrow for day signature 69 and some kind of a moon situation.
Full moon tomorrow, yes.
Full moon situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we'll look forward to that, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Goodbye for now.